Babble with Ben.
This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be participating today. Hello and welcome to Babble with Ben. I am your host, Ben Charlie Brown. In this interview, pop singer Eamonn Conor shares with me his experiences in writing and performing his music around Melbourne. We discuss his deep love of R&B and soul from the 70s and 80s, as well as his deep love for Michael Jackson. We also share our experiences performing around Melbourne and especially some of the more difficult sides of things, such as dealing with absent or really difficult audiences, right? And we also talk about how to get in the right mindset for our performances as well, like what do we do in the lead up to a performance. This interview was recorded on January 16th at Studio C in Box Hill. There's been a little bit of a delay. I apologise for that. I also apologise for what you may notice is a difference in sound quality for this interview as compared to my usual ones. It's a funny story because during the setup, Eamonn asks me as I'm setting up the microphones, right? Oh, do you ever forget to press record as you know, when you're doing a podcast? And I confidently answer, no, never. Anyway, I start the cameras rolling. I actually use two iPhones to record the podcast, right? So I start them both rolling. I sit down in my interviewer's seat, feeling like I've done the job and proceed to do the interview. Of course, not having pressed record on the two microphones that you'll see in the interview, right? So after feeling a little bit silly, I realized that I could actually use the audio from the two iPhones that I used to record the video, and that's what I ended up using, and I think it turned out okay. So, I hope you enjoy my interview with Eamonn. Thanks so much. Welcome to the Babble, Eamonn Conor.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, you're very, very welcome. And so, here you are, you're 1 month away from having released Last Chance Romance.
Yeah.
How's it been going? Tell people that don't know you, right? You are a singer-songwriter?
Yeah, singer-songwriter. I was born in Kooragang, moved to Kyabram, and then made the trek down to Melbourne. So I was about 19. So
swap the Murray for the Yarra, hey?
100%. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And so what sort of music do you for our audience, what sort of music do you like to make?
Well, when I first started, I didn't really know. I was just sort of going with the flow. I was working with a producer who sort of, did a lot of the, because I didn't really know what I was doing. He did a lot of the creativity behind it. So he sort of like guided me because I was like 20 years old at the time and I sort of didn't really know how to write a song or anything like that. So it was predominantly pop. But then after I released that one, which was Thoughts in 2019, I sort of worked with another producer, and it was a bit relieving for me because it was more of my creativity, and I sort of knew the kind of next path I wanted to take with my musical journey, I guess. So I'm really infatuated, and I really love 70s and 80s disco, funk, pop, R&B. Yep. So I wanted to make a bit of nostalgia EP that sort of brought back, the sounds that you hear from the 70s and 80s, and that had brass and strings. And all that. So, yeah. So, that's predominantly what I make now, but we're writing more stuff now, which is going to take a bit more of a turn, which is a bit more modern, I suppose, commercial pop with a couple of like 80s synth sounds in it. But yeah, so it's always generally changing for me, you know what I mean? So.
Oh, yeah, you've got to grow as an artist, right? You've got to explore these things. I mean, one of my heroes was David Bowie, and no two of his albums were quite the same. So, yeah, I think that's very healthy to do that. So you've been, oh, wow, so if you started in 2019, it's like you've been making music for 5 years now, hey?
Yeah. It's been a lot of people that aren't musicians, I find, sometimes don't understand, like, it's like the analogy, you always see the cake when it comes out of the oven, but you don't understand there's a lot that goes into it, and it's a lot of time and a lot of other things behind the scenes, to make the product. So, I love to do it. You can get exhausted sometimes, but I just love to create and keep on making music. And but yeah, it does take a lot of time and effort. So
yeah, of course. And so who inspires you? Like you mentioned sort of that 70s, 80s disco, maybe a bit of Motown as well.
Yeah. Well, I grew up, I suppose it was interesting. Like I used to love Tom Jones, his song Sex Bomb. I used to absolutely love that when I was a kid.
I remember when that dropped. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, those CDs, it's like the summer hits of like, and we used to always get them every year, and that song I was just obsessed with. But like biggest influence for me, like Michael Jackson. Like I remember watching, there was a documentary on like MTV when I was a kid, and I was playing with my toys, and I just saw they were going through all these film clips, and I just sort of was so fascinated by his dancing and his music, and that was a huge inspiration and influence for me. So I love listening to his music, and I also love the Gorillaz. I remember we went overseas. I'm very grateful for my parents. They took me and my siblings overseas when I was 6.
Wow.
We did a massive trip. And
where'd you go?
We went over, trying to recollect my memory. We went all over Asia and Indonesia. So like we went to Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Thailand, all those sort of places. But I remember like we'd go into the like CD stores, and you'd put a CD and chuck the headphones in. I just used to love listening to the Gorillaz, and so like, and the Backstreet Boys and that sort of stuff. So that's sort of like what I was listening to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was more listening to like Gorillaz, Backstreet Boys, and then as I sort of maybe got into primary school, that's when sort of, I sort of discovered, Michael Jackson. And I remember for my birthday, we went to Shepparton, and my mother got me for my birthday like #1 hits by Michael Jackson.
Was that the one with the statue of him?
I can't remember the
it was History, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah, it was like, but it was his CD #1 hits, and it had all these like main hits and all the music videos, and like kid you not, like I used to put that on every day before school, and like just try and like imitate his dance moves, and like I was just really fascinated by what he was doing. And I think it's because you don't really see a lot of artists do that, and what he does. So I was just really fascinated to it, and sort of when I started doing music, it's probably huge influence and inspiration for me. So.
Did you watch Leaving Neverland? It's a hard one for Michael Jackson fans. I saw it. We actually saw it as part of a class here at university. And I'm like, whoa! It was because it's hard, because like it was some pretty hard hitting stuff, and when I listen to his music now, I can't help but think of that documentary. Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah. I was like. Yeah, I remember actually watching it. My mum and dad were visiting at the time. I just chucked it on, and they struggled with it too. So, look, I don't know. I try and, for me as a person, like, I guess when you're looking at it from the outside, you just don't know. You know what I mean? Like, for me, like, I try and block that out. I just sort of, I appreciate the music, in terms of the personal stuff and all that. Like, I think for me, I like to have, I can create a barrier. So I can listen to his music and appreciate that, but block out all the other stuff that happened, because at the end of the day, like, I just sort of inspired by the art, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So I guess, that's something that I guess as individuals, we all have our opinions and thoughts on, that side of, Michael Jackson, I suppose. But for me, it was sort of like I just, focus on the art and the creativity. So
it's an endless debate, isn't it? Because, I mean, all sorts of artists, are known for having sort of morally questionable behaviour. I mean, I love Led Zeppelin, but Jimmy Page was, when he was 30, he was locking up a 16-year-old girl for half a year, or, and then... the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but of course, Anthony Kiedis, I think, used to bash one of his girlfriends, and so It's hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean...
It's like, I love Stephen Hawking, but now apparently we're hearing he's been tracking Epstein's
on
Island.
the Epstein list, yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff coming out with that Epstein list, isn't there? And
Do you see the memes when he's
I do. Like,
it's like in the wheelchair, and it's like towing a boat, or like he's underwater, like going. It's just crazy.
yeah, and there's all sorts of stuff like that, isn't it? It's like, can that art exist even if you don't enjoy that? Well, can you enjoy the art without enjoying the artist?
Yeah, I mean, well, you see all the stuff that happened with R. Kelly. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like it's interesting. Like a lot of producers and stuff call him the GOAT of R&B. You know, and this is after everything that happened. So it's like, I guess, you make a good point. Can we, separate the two? You know, the personal person and the artist. So I don't know. It's just, and it's getting harder now with social media. Everyone knows what you're doing now. So it's like,
Well, you mentioned, before we started recording, right? You mentioned that you found my podcast through Jenna Moreno of Awesome, right? And we were talking about how these days, right? Like, you kind of are selling yourself as a personality as much as an artist now through social media. Do you find that you have to do that a lot? Do you like, make the reels saying, hey, here I am, this is what I'm doing?
Yeah, I like, Jenna's amazing. I absolutely love Jenna. I love what she does. She's really good for artists that struggling to find the way in terms of how to properly promote and market themselves and the product and the music. So, but I've spoken a lot with Jenna, and I really, if it wasn't for music, I don't reckon I'd be on social media. I don't reckon I've changed my Facebook profile picture for like 6 years. So it's like, well, that's a lie. My Facebook got hacked, so I had to create a new one. So I've got like, it's sort of like, but she was very encouraging in terms, it's really important that you get, your face on camera, do more reels, show your personality. Where I think for me as a person, like, I feel comfortable doing that on stage, but like sort of doing it through social media and that stuff, I really struggled with. But it's just this day and age, as the music industry changes, it's something you got to do and you got to get comfortable doing. So,
yeah, I struggled with it too because I'm always like, it's one person to smile at a real person. It's one thing to smile at a real person, right?
Yeah.
But when you've got to smile at your camera in the middle of it, people are really good at it. People are really good at pretending that the phone is a camera, right? But I'm not the best at it.
Yeah.
Do you find the same thing? Like,
yeah, I get real camera shy.
Yeah.
And like even when we have gigs filmed, it's sort of like, I don't know, you just got to get used to it. I think to do what we do as musicians and artists, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that, because, it's like I find singing different to public speaking. I'm and it's just a different thing because, you sort of, it's all these other things that go into performing and singing. You know what I mean? So it's hard. It's just one of those things that, you got to be confident, I guess, in what you're doing, and it takes a lot of time. So
Jenna and I talked about this concept called authentic vulnerability and just how essential it is to being on stage. And I think that sort of ties into what you're saying there too. Like, you've got to let the armour down. You've got to, sort of withstand all the, the eyeballs and, whatever people might be thinking. And it for me, it takes a long time to sort of recharge after a performance, right? Like I couldn't be that sort of person that would go straight from a gig to, like the VIP section signing autographs and saying hi. I'd want like some recharge time. Do you have like a wind down process after a gig?
I kind of normally like it's hard. I feel like because my mind's always going like 100 miles an hour, so I find it hard to wind down in general. I'm always feel like I'm doing something. So after gigs, like I'm happy like hanging out with the band or like, you know, going to do something. But then there are times where I just like to go home, have a shower and go to bed, especially if it's like a Thursday night because I got work the next morning. But yeah, it just depends. Like for me, I know we did last year we did a block of gigs. And after that, I like took a month and a bit off because it was really burnt me out. So yeah, I mean, it just depends, like sort of how I'm feeling. But yeah, like normally how I unwind is sort of I'll take a bit of time off from just performing live, just to sort of get myself, because I find that remotivates me again to sort of get back on stage and start performing again. So
get a bit of hunger for it. Yeah, I'm the same. You know, sometimes you just think, oh no, I can't do that again. But yeah, then the same with this podcast. I had a 6-month break last year. And then after a while, I'm like, oh, I kind of miss, you know, having people in and having a yarn. So yeah, but I needed that break. I needed to come back to it. So I get it.
100%. So.
Do you ever find that you have to go straight from work to a gig?
Normally I try and take leave. Like if I've got a gig, I don't like to work on the day that I have a gig. So normally I like to take the day off because I need to mentally prepare for it. I just need to, you know, sort of have a day where I can relax before it, because I find like if I've worked and I go straight from work to a gig, I'm not like in the right mindset. So I think for me to mentally prepare myself, I really need to have my own time away from people. I like to be by myself before a gig. So yeah, I'll normally take leave the day off for a gig. So.
I think that's so smart because, I mean, I've certainly done, you know, the race around all day and then have a gig afterwards and, like, you can do it, you can push through it, but I feel like I'm twice as exhausted the day after. And, like, yeah, and there is a bit of a stress to it too. Like, you all through that work, all through that other commitment, you're like, oh, am I going to get time to do my, you know, warm-up and my scales and that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Do you have do you have that sort of routine before a gig? Like, do you like to, you know, maybe do like some vocal warm-ups or?
Depends how I'm feeling. Like the recent gigs that we did, I found that I just like to sing songs that I liked and enjoyed in the car on the way to the gig, honestly. I don't do a heap of scales and warm-ups and stuff. I probably should. It'd probably benefit me a lot more. But yeah, I find like I just like chucking on some songs I love to sing to in the car on the way to the gig. And that sort of gets me up. That sort of gets me sort of in the right mindset to perform. But normally before the gig during the day, I like to just sort of like, you know, just chill out, just do everyday things like, you know, might do like washing or like, you know, go for a run or do a gym session or just like, you know, just have a sort of me day before it. So
that's pretty smart because I've definitely psyched myself out before a gig. Just, you know, like either because something that I do is I will pick a song that is a little bit outside of my reach, right? And then I'll just like repeat the same like phrase or passage over and over again, and I'll go and, you know, record it and listen back to it and see, you know, how close I am to getting it the way I want. And then if it's not perfect, I just psych myself out and I'm already bummed out by the time I'm on stage. And so I think your approach of like, you know, just a little warm-up before you're on stage, you know, especially if it's some songs you really love in the car, right, then that's pretty smart. I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, it's up to the individual, I think. Like for me, that works well for me. It's kind of like, you know, when you play, you know, if you play team sport, you see the guys that are like doing a heap of mobility before the game that are really like intense, and you see the guys that are like just sitting, just waiting for the game to start. You know, it's I think it just depends on the individual and how you mentally prepare. I don't think there's ever a wrong or right answer in terms of the right way to go about it. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Which venues did you find you had some really good gigs at last year?
I really enjoyed the SB Basement. That was fun. I feel like I probably performed the best I ever have at that gig. I was just like my crowd interaction and stuff. I do like to busk. I busk a lot. I just think busking is so cool because you don't have to there's no pressure to get a certain amount of people to the gig. You can sort of, and you know, you can sort of perform new material and sort of get a gauge of like people walking past if they sit down and stay for the whole thing, and just sort of, you know, you sort of interacting just with everyday people on the streets that probably have never heard you or like don't know you. So, but yeah, in terms of venues, like, yeah, the Gasso upstairs I love. Bergie Band Room, their new band room sounds incredible. So yeah, probably the SP Basement, Bergie Band Room, and upstairs at the Gasso are probably my fave venues in Melbourne. So
Yeah, cool. Did you were you part of a lineup, or were you the headliner or support, or?
yeah, so we did all headline gigs. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah, it was cool. Like there were some gigs that went really well, some like in terms of like trying to get people through the door weren't as good, but that's just the grind of being an independent artist and trying to get your music out there. So it's kind of like, you know, when you were talking before about performing live, it's kind of like, and what you were talking about with Jenna, it was like, yeah, I think the important thing about performing live is even if it's not in terms of a successful show, in terms of like getting a lot of people there, it's still important that you're active and performing and on stage. And I think that's a big part of it because, you know, there's so many other positives you can take from like any gig, you know what I mean? So it could be like, you know, you could be working on a new song and, you know, like, you know, there's less pressure because there's not as many people in the crowd. So you can sort of like, you know, just try a few things differently and try a few things out. So I don't believe that there's any bad gigs. You can always take a positive from every gig that you do. So
Yeah. I mean, there are certainly some difficult gigs. I remember I was supporting a friend of mine, and it was at the Brunswick Artist Bar. Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
And you know how it's basically a corridor, right?
Yeah.
And I was on stage and there were like 3 people in the crowd, right? And they were no further from me than you are now, right? Which is what, like a metre at most?
Yeah.
And here I am, there's like the 4 of us, and it had been a while since I'd performed, especially like guitar and singing. And so I was feeling a bit unconfident, and they were sort of like, I don't know whether they could sense that I was not feeling confident because they were sort of not making eye contact and they were looking at their phones, and I'm like, oh, like it's a lesson you learn, like maybe, because I knew I was stretching myself, like I was doing it in the middle of assessment season during university, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had said no to this, but look, you learn something from it, hey?
Yeah, it's a hard one because, I mean, you know, we've had gigs where, you know, I find for me, like I perform, but like I feed off the energy in the audience. So if there's a lot more people, I'm way more confident and comfortable. When there's less people, I kind of have to dig deep to try and, you know, make it a really comfortable, confident gig in myself. You know what I mean? So it is hard. And look, we've had gigs where, you know, sometimes you have 3-4 people rock up, sometimes you have none. But I think the thing is that for me, my personality and who I am as an artist is I try and have every gig as consistent as possible. So regardless of how many people are coming to see you, every gig for us needs to be consistent and, you know, just putting 100% out there every time. Because, you know, we're all on a different journey. We're all like, you know, I think this day and age with social media, we can get lost with comparing ourselves with other people that are doing what we do, and then we sort of say, you know, they're sort of doing massive gigs with huge people, and like you compare yourselves. But I think you just got to take a step back and it really, like, you know, just you're on your own journey and just understand that, like, you know, what you sometimes see on social media, you don't as I said earlier about the whole, you know, you see the cake when it's done, but you don't see the stuff that's put into it. You don't know what these artists that are, you know, doing really well now, what they had to go through and the adversity they had to go through and all the gigs that they had to go through where no one was coming before they got to that level. So I think it's just slow down and take time and you know, if you really believe in your product and you really believe in, you know, you as an artist, it will all pan out, you know, but it's just sort of, yeah, I try not to get demoralised about that sort of stuff. I really always try and stay confident and, I just love performing anyway, so it doesn't really bother me.
I think you do have to love it, hey? Like, if you had any sort of doubts about it, you'd be like, oh, no, I'm just going to do something else. Because, the comparisons, there is the old saying, comparison is the thief of joy, but it's so easy these days, especially when, every way that you look at someone, whether it's Instagram or Spotify or whatever, there's always a number right there, right? And you go, ooh, how's that number compared to mine?
Yeah.
But as you said, like, everyone, has a different starting point. Everyone's got a different journey. I think there are some definite canon events, and that, playing to an empty room is one of them, I think. I think all artists, as much as it sucks, you need to perform to an empty room or, one or two people at least once or twice.
Yeah.
Because you never know who those one or two people are, right?
Exactly.
Like, I've had gigs where the only audience was perhaps the support act that we had, right? And those were some of the best gigs because
that's
the support act was getting into it.
That's why you stack up the support acts, mate, so that you got to...
Well, it's all part of building community too, isn't it? And it doesn't hurt to have a support act that's, ever so slightly further in their careers than you are. And it's like, maybe you should be the headliner, but hey, I've done the gig, so. Yeah. But it really is important to do the hard yards, hey?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, you kind of got to know what you're signing up for, You got to know what's in the hot dog you're eating, you know what I'm saying? So it's sort of like, as an artist, and it's that thing, it's like, when, it's like anything in life, I feel, that before you make a decision on something, you should, stop for a second and always ask a question like, what if, Because I feel like if you can answer that, you can understand the consequences that will come with it. So it's like when I started pumping money into my recordings and stuff, I knew the consequences that were coming with it. It could be like, I might not make a return on this. I might not make anything on this. So I understand, and also like, I might do gigs where no one's coming or no one likes my music. But I understand what I signed up for. Like I know that it can go really well or really bad. But, I do it because I enjoy it, So I understand the consequences. I know that I could make no money from this, that no one could come to my gigs, but I understand that. And I know the consequences that comes with trying to make it as an independent artist. So I'm okay with I guess, failing in a sense, you know what I mean? Like I'm comfortable in that because I know that if I just keep going, eventually one day, so, but yeah, I understand like the consequences that come with being an independent artist and the risks involved, so.
There's a term that's called affordable loss. And I think every musician, when they're starting out, has this concept of like, okay, cool, I'm going to pay this much to, record and produce the music, right? And, what's the current payout for Spotify at the moment? You've got to get 1,000 streams for 6 cents or something?
Yeah.
6,000 for $1? No, not even. I'm not sure. But, like if you're, you can very easily pay $1,000 by the time an EP's mixed and mastered, right? Like easy.
Oh.
And so that's a lot of streams, right? And so, you sort of go, okay, well, look, I'm doing it because I love it. Like if the money gets made back, that's okay. I mean, like it's not like the old days where you'd be on a record label and you're taking out a loan.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard one. It is a hard industry to sort of get into, and I guess I don't even understand that because I've never been signed to a label or anything. I'm sort of going in it blindly. But that's why I think it's good to, it's good that I've met people like Jenna and her program because. As an independent artist, at least you have some sort of guidance to sort of help you understand the industry a bit more and help you sort of get and fast track to where you're trying to go. So, yeah, it's just, yeah.
At the very least, a shoulder to cry on, hey?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like, but, there's a lot of people in the industry, like, especially Melbourne, there's a lot of people, we're all in the same boat. We're all just trying to do our best, and I think it's good that we, try and support each other and get to as many gigs as we can, and because a lot of people are in the same boat as us, but it's nice to see other artists sort of at that same level, but also understand that they're just doing it because they love it too, you know, and it's sort of like you're not alone on this journey, I guess. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Speaking of not being alone, who have you got on your team? You've got, you were talking about how you had a producer before, and I imagine you've got a live band as
I'm
well.
very lonely. No. Yeah, so I've got I've got some really cool guys behind me and people that I trust. I've got James Kalani on as a bass player for me. Kai Lowry, who's my drummer, who does a lot of work behind the scenes, like a lot of work, like, you know, doing set lists, organising backing tracks for live performances, you know, doing spec sheets and stuff. So it's not, even though like I cringe a bit because I know it is my name, like it is Eamonn Conor, but I don't see it as just me. Like there's so many other people, like, you know, producer Simon Morrow and Phil Tertier, who does a lot of the programming, and Tan Trin, who helps me, you know, transcribe a lot of my melodies into chords and stuff and helps me write, and, you know, Jimmy Criticus, who is an amazing guitarist who helped me write a lot of music as well. So it's not just me. Like there's so many people that really help me and believe in me, and, you know, that I'm very grateful for, that I've met and come across, and you know, amazing people that are amazing artists and musicians. So yeah,
it's good to have that team together, because I think every successful artist, I mean, you talk, you know, your Lady Gagas, your Kylie Minogues, all those people who sort of go under their own name, right?
Minogue, Kylie Minogue is incredible.
How many, like, she's had a hit record in every decade since the 80s. That is just phenomenal.
The people that know me well, they know why I like Kylie Minogue, but her track Coming to My World is a banger, mate.
Oh,
it's my favourite song of hers.
Was that off Fever? Was that a little while ago? Yeah.
I think maybe like 2001. She had an album in 2001 maybe.
Yeah.
But it's such a great track. Like, you know, that's one of my go-to karaoke songs. Yeah.
I think I was dancing along to that song when I was maybe 19 on Commercial Road. Yeah, it was good times. Yeah. It's funny how many generations will find a Kylie Minogue track that they just vibe with, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, even more so than I think maybe Madonna, who would be regarded as one of her contemporaries at the time. Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like Kylie is just, by being slightly daggy, managed to just be perpetual.
Yeah, she was just crazy. You know how she sort of started. I think she started Home and Away or Neighbours, yeah. And then she just went into music, and it was just like, I don't know. She just, you know, but she's a very talented individual. So
with a good team.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you know, I think it's important you have people, you know, behind you that, you know, trust you and back, you know, what you're doing, and, you know, because you can't do it by yourself.
Oh, you'd burn out.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, you need people to help you out. So, yeah, Eamonn Conor isn't just one person. It's many people now. Yeah.
Very good. Well, we'll wrap it up here. So you've just had the EP out in December. What have you got coming up in the near future?
Yeah, so we're sort of planning on doing gigs. We've got a gig on Friday, 8th of March at 123 Bar.
Where's that?
That is in Clifton Hill.
Yep.
Yeah, so, really, really excited. Keen to get back on stage. We're going to be busking in February. We're back in writing new music, and we're going to be performing at the Craigieburn Festival Friday, 2nd of March. So I guess I'm just trying to put more time into my music, and I've even had thoughts I'd love to go to the UK and live over there and do music over there for a bit. And I think that I don't want to get old and be like, what if, you know? So that's why, you know, the what if question. So I'm going all out. So yeah.
What's the old saying, that you regret what you didn't do rather than what you did, hey?
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, and if you've got a passion and love for something, you know, don't worry about what other people think and their perceptions, you know. Do it because you enjoy it, and that's what I do. You know, I block out the outside noise. And I've had many people over the years tell me, you know, why do you do this? You know, it's a waste of money and stuff. But I went through December, when I wasn't active, I'd release the EP and I wasn't performing stuff. I was so like, I didn't realize why I was so depressed. But now that I'm starting to get book gigs and stuff, that fire's back. I'm like, wow, it's, I need food and water, but I also need music. And I didn't realize how much I needed in my life. So, yeah.
I'm the same. Like, people looked at me a bit crazy going and doing a music degree at the age of 38 or something like that. But, every now and again I have my doubts about it. But then I think about what it would be like if I wasn't doing it or I didn't finish it. And I just go, oh, no. Yeah. there's no chance. Yeah.
Well, all cultures are built on creativity and arts, and I feel like, I don't know, like, I don't want to get political, but I think Australia doesn't value the arts and culture as much as other countries. I feel like it's more about trades and hard work over here. And being an artist is hard work, but it's more about I just feel like the arts and creativity and culture is a little bit undervalued here when you compare it to, other countries. So
there's a quote, I think it was from Winston Churchill, and I'm probably butchering it a little bit, right? But there was a quote during World War II where they were like, someone said to Winston Churchill, surely we should cut funding from the arts to put it towards the military. And Winston Churchill said, well, if we don't have the arts, then what are we fighting for?
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I agree with that. It was the same with COVID. It's like, all these artists were doing it so hard during the COVID lockdown. It's kind of like, yeah, we've got to, that stuff on the radio, that stuff that you see on your wall, that's the stuff that keeps you going during those hard times, right?
Yeah.
So, you and me both, we've got to sort of stick it out because we love it. And it has a value. It definitely has a value.
Right. Music, everyone listens to music, and it's one of those things that the thing I love about music, and my favorite gigs are when I look into the crowd and you see all different cultures and diversities and different backgrounds, and they're all like one in unity. And I don't think even politicians can do that. I think it's people coming together, enjoying music, and it's incredible, and I think that's the real importance of music in society. I really do believe that, because I've met countless people from different races and cultures and stuff, and you're coming together to make music, and it's just that's what life should be about. Not this divide. It should be about bringing people together, and music does that. Music does that. So
it's timeless, isn't it? It's timeless and it's so powerful. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, if people want to find you on the intertubes, what's the best way to get to you? Now, there's a double N there somewhere, which I missed. Let me get it clear. There's a double N. Don't miss it.
Yeah, I know. Some people say my first name should be one N and the second one should be the double N, but it's Eamonn Conor, EAMONN CONOR, and you can find me just on all stream platforms and all socials and stuff. So, yeah. Cool.
Fantastic. So lovely to have you on, Eamonn.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. I love what you do for independent artists and just talking to people. You know what I mean? It's cool. So,
hey, thanks so much. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
It's awesome, man. Keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.